Welcome to class once again. And today we'll be talking about objects and colors. And all right, good morning. If you can hear me, please let me know you can hear me. All right, cool, cool. So I've muted everybody based on so that we won't have people interrupting the class, basically. So when it's time for everybody to talk, I will unmute everybody. And yeah. So today we'll be talking about the two main components of UI designs. For every UI design you do, there are two things you will obviously use every time. And we are talking about objects and colors. So we'll be talking about all you need to know about UI design shapes, objects that you can use, and also the colors available for you, basically. So yeah, let's dive in. Um, First of all, I will introduce myself. I am Obolari Rafakede. I am a product designer in Lagos, Nigeria, and yeah, I currently work at Outlane, and I also freelance with companies like TopTal and Brain Trust. I currently lead the design at Outlane, leading the customer facing app and also the internal apps that we use. And I've previously worked at some startups here in Nigeria, also like Carbon, Synfix, and Max, basically. So that's just a brief about who I am. So what are we going to be talking about today? We'll be talking about shapes. So I'll be introducing us to shapes. I'll be introducing us to the box model, and also we'll talk about shadows, variants, and components. Basically, we'll also talk a little bit about colors and how we can use colors. And then we might have like a few minutes on Figma to just showcase everything I've spoken about. So have more of like an interactive class, interactive sections. And once I'm done with this, we should, if you have questions, if you have anything you need to ask, you can always ask me and I'll be available to answer the question. Sorry, am I breaking to everybody? Someone said I'm breaking. So please just notify me if I'm breaking to everybody. So I know it's my network. All right. I think Akombi should try to check network. Okay. I think all right. Let's just dive in. I think of everyone, if I'm breaking, you should try to check your network. I'm currently on a very fast speed here, so I'm not sure my upload speed is fast. So I'm not sure it's from my side. So yeah, let's talk about objects first and shapes in UI. So objects are basically what you use to start your design. So for any tool you're using to create your design, whether it is anything from Adobe, anything from Microsoft, PowerPoint, or anything, you use objects to actually get started with anything you are doing. Basically, okay. So you use objects to get started with anything you're doing. So whether you're making a low fidelity prototype, a fully finalized UI design, or you'll be using shapes and objects in the design tool of your choice. So no matter the tool you're using, no matter where you're doing it, even if you're using pen and paper, you'll be using shapes and objects, basically. And all currently available UI design tools work by manipulating vector shapes. So in the sense that vector shapes are shapes that you can manipulate easily and you will not lose quality. There are different types of shapes. We have vector shapes and we have raster shapes. Raster shapes are basically images that once you drag to a particular point, you start losing the quality of the image. But when it comes to vectors you never lose the quality. It always expands how way you want. It always mimics anything you want to try to do, basically. So for all the tools we are using in the world right now, from Sketch to Figma to Adobe XD to Framer, every one of them uses vector as their base object tool, basically. So UI design is basically about moving rectangles around. So one of the biggest objects you'll be using around is rectangle, is the rectangle tool. Is used just moving rectangles around, basically. So how you move them, when to move them, and how to use these rectangles are basically the key in creating a UI design. If you're planning to design interface, be prepared that most of the time it will be about moving various rectangular objects around. And they are like the most popular shapes. We also have shapes like ellipses and stars in other polygon tools in all the interfaces. But one thing you always come across is the rectangle tool a lot, followed by the ellipses, basically. So that's what it's all about shape. When you want to start designing, you'll be using mostly your rectangles tool, where you can use it to create. You can use it to form what's the name? You can use it to form ellipses or circles. You can also use them to get started with anything, basically. So the main idea of using the rectangle is because it helps us to identify a lot of things, basically. And when you are working with developers, developer works with rectangles a lot, so it's best for us to actually understand what using a rectangle is in design, basically. So we have a model we call the box model in design. The box model is basically the most basic way of defining a digital interface. So most of the interface we use are always in box style. Let's say our phones are in box styles, our laptop are in rectangle styles. Even when you're designing for virtual reality, they are mostly in rectangle style. We try to mimic what we see in the world, basically. Most of the things in the world are mixed up box styles, basically. So the box model is the most basic way of defining a digital interface, a digital interface object, both in design and in code. So most of the design we do works according to the box model. So it's essential for us to actually get to understand what this box model is. If you can see my screen, if you can see the image I have, this is a typical example of how the box model works, basically. So it consists of four different elements. We have this box. This is the box we are talking about. Basically, it consists of four different things. It consists of the hue. So this is the hue. That is the color that is inside it. Basically, it also consists of the outer margin. Basically, what is outside it. We also call this padding. Oh, sorry, I have some lorem some here. We also have the outer margin. Basically, we also have the inner uh, margin, and we also have the border. Basically, so these four elements are what makes box model complete. Basically, so what is the fill? The fill is basically the background of our element. It can be a solid color, a gradient color. It can be an image, or it can be mix of all I've mentioned. Basically, so the example here, it's a gradient image, it's a gradient color that is there, basically. So it's a gradient that is filling our box. The next one we have is our outer margin. Our outer margin is okay. The next one we have is our border. Our border is basically the line that surrounds our box. Basically, we call this outline, or we also call it border. Basically, it's the one that encompasses what we have as our fill. Basically, it is used in various ways, or when you are designing. Basically, then the third one we have is our outer margin. Our outer margin is basically the distance between the next box. So if I have two boxes, what is the distance between them? Basically, it is called the outer margin. Basically, the area outside of our object, it allows us to position it with enough space concerning everything around it. So if I'm having two boxes together, what will be the distance between them? Basically, is called the outer margin. Then we have the inner margin. The inner margin is basically means it's like a safe space. So let's say this box, you can see another small box that is showing here. This is this space here is like our inner margin. Our inner margin is basically used when we have more elements inside the box. How well should they be apart? How far should they be apart? You understand? If I have a button, if my box here is a button, what should be the distance between the text that I have and what's the name and the borderline on the box? That is what we call inner padding and inner margin and padding, basically. So it's more extensive. It's like the biggest safe space inside the object that it uses, basically. So we have other properties of of shapes. We have um, we have size, position, angle, and border radius, basically. So these are like the basic properties of any shape you use or any object you actually use, no matter if it is rectangle, triangle, polygon, or any polygon in design. And basically, these are like what you will always get to see or get to interact with every time. So basically, the size is basically the height and width of any shape you are using. So with an height in point, define the size of an object. In most cases, we use W and H for short, as it is a two-dimensional space. So the width is a scale of the horizontal axis, while the height is a scale of the vertical one. So if you can see this sample that I have here, basically here is the height and here is the width. So no matter the shape you are using, no matter if you are using a triangle, we always try to measure in height and width everywhere. If you are using circles, we always try to measure in height and width, basically. So most times they still take the form of you are measuring a square or a rectangle, but we always have them in height and width. The other properties we have in all our shapes are positions. How where these shapes that I've created, where will they be positioned on my frame, on my hardboard, basically. So positioning of the object is a set of numbers on the x and y axis defined by the artboard that contains it. The x is the position on the horizontal axis, while the y is the position on the vertical one. So if you've done mathematics, you understand x and y axis. Basically, where you place something on the screen defines the x and the y axis. And a sample here is basically this is a triangle, this is a rectangle that is in x0 and y0, basically. So let's say I have drawn out a screen and I try to position this rectangle 0, x and y. This is where it is going to be. But if I click on this same rectangle and I try to reposition it, and I put my x to 280 and my y to I put my X to 260 and my Y to 90, this is where it is going to stay, basically. So, like I said, this also works for any shapes. Uh, I'm also using for this circle, this is also X and Y of 0, 0. But if you can see very well, it has an enclosing of like of a square, because we try to measure in length and height. And in mathematics, normally you can measure circles like that, you use diameters and co. But because it's UI design, we measure everything in width and height, and also x and y axis, basically. So another properties we have of shapes is the rotation. How do how what is the rotations we use? We use like about 360 degrees of rotations in UI design, and angle defines the rotation of your object going clockwise. The default being 0 degrees. Rotation can also be a negative number. It is worth remembering that in minus 15-degree rotation is the same as 360 minus 15 degrees, which equals to 345. So when you are designing, you can rotate your objects and clockwise or anti-clockwise. But most times it's going clockwise. That is the best, because you go from 0 to 360, vice versa. Basically, so anytime you are creating stuff, if you have a rectangle that you want to have in a different angle than the normal angle, you can always use the rotate tool to actually uh, rotate your shape. Then the last properties of a shape that I have here is the border radius. The border radius is basically how how your rectangle feels, how your shape feels. Basically, are they edgy or they have rounded curves? Basically, if you can see the samples I have here, I have a very straight rectangle. Then I have curved ones, which looks more subtle. I have ones that has more curves, and I have one that is absolutely rounded. Basically, so border curves, border radius are the ways our the edge of our what's the name, the edge of our shapes feel like how edgy they are and how smooth they can be. Many studies shows that rounded shapes are considered more friendly than sharp ones. So to define the level of roundness, we use a property known as border radius, and sometimes people call it corner radius, basically. Uh, okay, so I just want to know if everybody is here and if everybody is getting me before I continue to the next slide. All right, cool, nice. So, like I said, the width and height are always of the smallest possible rectangle. So these are like things I would like you to note. The width and height are always of the smallest possible rectangle box that can contain the object. Even if the object is as irregular as possible, they will always contain the width and the height. And a border radius is a number just like the width and height. It's also represented in points or px, like we use in design. The larger the number, the larger the roundness of the corners of our shape. You can use it for all of the edges at once or set them individually. So like I have this border radius here that I have this at this round. I can make this particular one as sharp as this. I can make this one continue like this and make this one as sharp as this. So you can use them individually or you can use them, you can apply them to everything at once. So one other things about the objects we use is how we use them. Basically, is drop shadow. Drop shadow is one key element in object. Drop shadows can be an amazing way to add depth and emphasis to your designs. Basically, so drop shadow is like trying to mimic what happens in the real world. Uh, Basically, the world is a 3D space, and how do you mimic a 3D space if you are not using shadows? As a human being, you have shadows always following you about because it's trying to mimic that you are on a surface, basically. So drop shadows can be an amazing way to add depth and emphasis to your designs, and when used right, can make your UI look very incredible. You understand? I can use white to design and just use drop of shadows to define different segments of my design, and they'll come out very great, even if I don't have too much colors on there. So shadows are a very nice way of creating a container for content without making it feel boxed in. Basically, shadows can be good and shadows can be bad, but when used right, shadow is a very great way of showing depth and emphasis in your designs. Basically, yeah. So one more thing about objects. So I've been talking about objects for like the past 20 minutes, and what are we using all these objects to do? I've talked about rectangle, I've talked about shadow, I've talked about border radius, but basically, why do I need this? So we use all this. We use this shape, the rectangle shape. We use the this shape to create what we call components. So components are basically what you use to do your designs. So I'm creating rectangles, but what am I using the rectangles to do? You understand? I am creating an interface. How do I? What are the components I'm using this create stuff to do? So components are basically all the elements you use when designing. So when designing your interface, you want to be consistent, you want to be predictable in your choice of interface element and component, whether they are aware of it or not. Users can become very familiar with elements acting in a certain way. So choosing to adopt those elements can appropriate when appropriate will help with task completion, efficiency, and satisfaction. So most of the components we see on our designs are like let's say we have different cards, we have buttons, we have players, we have icons, basically. So these are like the components we are creating. So when you are trying to create icons, you start from square also. When you're trying to create your button, you start from square. when you're trying to create images, you start from square also. So basically, these are the different kinds of components that we have, and we have examples of components are like our checkboxes, radio buttons, drop down fields, list boxes, we have toggles, and we also have text field and date fields, basically. And so the image here shows the different kind of components that you can also see. So like here, I have a card that is a component. The component is made up of, let's say, my text, a box, an ellipse, and also an icon. An icon which can also get started from from a rectangle, basically. We have another one that is more of like a play button, but it has some extra info, basically. And this is also started from not just your circle. It's also started from the box and also your ellipses, basically. And they kind of introduce something I talked about in the slide earlier, which is the shadows. Most of these elements have shadows that are making them look more lively and feel more alive, like they want to actually jump out of the screen. So those are components. So your components are numerous, and you can create them as you design. So if I need a button, I can create a button. But one of the things you should always notice, they have to be consistent with anything you're doing. So if I'm designing a social media app today and I want to get started, one of the first things I try to do is to create all the components I know I might need. You understand? I don't get to check all the component I need once I get started, but as I move on, I create more components, then I also add it to my component library, basically. The other thing I'll talk about is variant. I'll just talk about it briefly, and when we get to Figma, I will talk more on that. So variants are essentially different versions of component that you have created already. You understand? So let's say I've created a button, and this button, we have something we call primary and secondary button. I can create different variant of that button. So if I say, okay, I've created my primary button, but I want it in different variants. I want it to show in different ways. When you are on a website and and you want to click on a button, how does it interact? If I move my mouse to a particular button and it shows a different interaction to tell me that I can click on it, that's another variant of the component. So the button being alone, it's a component on its own. Then when I hover on it, you understand, it shows another variation of the button. So those are like different variants of a button. So variants are basically different versions of component, uh, and they can be referenced from the original component or component instance, basically. So yeah, do anybody have a question about what we've talked about so far in terms of objects and what we can use objects for in our designs? Oh, sorry. All right, sorry. Someone said I'm too fast. Please, you can always call me back when, never. So if you don't understand anything I've talked about in terms of components, in terms of objects, in terms of the various types of objects we have, in terms of the properties of the shapes, you can ask your question now before we move to the next one. Okay, someone said I should talk about variants again. All right. So okay, okay, okay. All right. So I'm seeing some questions. I think the first one is I should talk about variants again. The next one says I should explain the part I said uh, icon starts with rectangles. And how do you know the components and variants to create? Please can you put more light on variants? Okay. 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 So like I said, I think more variants will come when we actually dive into Figma and try to do something. But variant is basically different versions of something that you've created. So let's say I've created a button. I want to have different versions of this button. I have this button. I have my button in let's say this is my button, this blue version. But I want when someone moves his or her mouse on the button, it should show another style of that same button. So it's me creating different styles, creating different styles of a particular component. So my component is my button, but when on over, I want it to show another color. When someone clicks on it, I want it to show another color. When when um when someone when it is loading, I want it to show another instance. You understand? So components are basically the different instance of variants are basically different instance of a component. I'll explain more on this. I think when we do it visually, you understand what I'm saying better. Basically about component. So when I said almost everything starts with a rectangle, it means one of the basic tools we use in design is the rectangle. It's a flat surface. So if you can see my screen right here, I have different things. They are made up of rectangles. Our screens are always made up of rectangles or ellipses. You understand? So if you are doing anything, most times you start with a rectangle. You understand? Then you morph this rectangle into what you want to create. Let's say I want to draw out, I want to design this card. I'm starting by basically creating a rectangle. Once I create the rectangle, I give it a border radius I want. Then I click on my tool again. I can either choose to actually also do this round circle with another rectangle. Draw out the rectangle, give it a very round uh, border radius. And also, if I want to create my plus is basically made up of two rectangles. Draw two rectangles, flip it accordingly to using the rotate to flip it. Basically, I'll get that. So most times when you're designing, you start with a rectangle, and also even though you are not starting with a rectangle, if I draw a triangle out, it is being measured in a rectangular form by using just width and height. You understand? So because those are the things our developers will understand. Those are the ways things have been being coded is width and height, basically. But when we dive into Figma, we will learn more about this. So yeah, I think I should just move to the next section because I want us to take some time on Figma also. And I don't want to bore you with a lot of talks, basically. So let's move to the next section, which is colors. What are colors and how do you use colors in UI design? Yeah. So colors and its application in UI design. Color is one of the main elements in your UI design. It can shift the first impression of your product from sophisticated, cool to crazy and wild. So you have your object already. How do you make the object look beautiful? Colors are the key, are the answers to this, basically, and they can give every feeling about your product or your website, basically. And color can speak in ways that are very bit as powerful as language. They can reflect the personality of your brand. They can attract users, and they can also better communicate your messages. Color can set the basic mood, tone, concept, and connotation for a brand or product. So color is like a very integral part of a brand. Basically, that's why a lot of people pay attention to the colors they use, the type of colors we use. A lot of people come and say, "Oh, I'm using blue because it is warm." If you notice, a lot of startups use blue in the world. Basically, they will always say because it is warm, but they have various shades of blue. Basically, so yeah, that is just an intro to color and what color is about. So there are three important things about color that we should all know. We have the hue, the value, and the saturation. So on my screen, I have the three. So hue is the color in natural state. Uh, an example is blue, green, yellow, red, etc. That we see without any variation of light and darkness. You understand? So hue is just the color as it is. No shades, no adding of light, no adding of dark to them basically. So we have yellow green, we have orange and all that. So they are like basically the plain colors that we have available. Then we have value. So value is the amount of light and darkness color has. So um this is green. How many color does this? How many light does this green have, and how many darkness does this green have? Basically, so a clear example in our daily life is to see things closer to the light with white tones and other things that are in the background with more darker tones. So the more close an object is to the light, that's how bright a color will look to us. But if I'm very far away from a particular color, because the way my eyes interpret it, there's a lot of darkness for me to see colors. That is how dark that color will be. So the value is basically the amount of light and darkness reflecting on a color. You understand? So if there's a blue on my table right now and I point a touch to it, the blue I will see when the touch is on it is kind of going to be a bit different. Looks in a different way to my natural eyes, basically. So if you are closer to the light, you have more light tones, and if you are further away from the light, you have more shadow tones and darkness. So saturation is basically the intensity of the color. When we saturate the color, we have more intense and vivid light. So when we desaturate colors, we have a dull color. An example of this is when we completely desaturate the color, we have the gray color. Basically, so saturation means adding more hues to it, and the lesser the hue, the lighter the color, and the more the hue, the more saturated the color will be. So it's more of you mixing red with red with red with red. It gets more saturated um, and thicker. Yeah. So there are different types of color when it comes to the design world, and these colors are different in different way in their own ways, and we need to know when to use these different colors. Basically, there are colors that I can use as a painter to paint my wall, but I cannot use it to print. And there are colors that I can use to print in my house that I cannot use it to print outside. You understand? Like I cannot use it to print in an industrial machine. And there are colors that I can use to print, but I cannot use them for designs that is going to stay on the web or on my phone or my digital assets. Basically, so these are like the colors we are going to talk about. And colors can be noted down in different ways. And the most common ones we will probably come across are Pantones, Cmyk, X, RGB, RGBA. So, but in design, we actually just use X and RGB in screen design. But it is still essential for us to understand the difference. So I will just talk a bit about each of these colors so that we understand the difference between them, basically. So Pantone, you use Pantone just for screen designs, just for print design. Sorry. So Pantone is like the exact color mix of ink. So it's the if you get a Pantone here today, is the same Pantone you get in another world, in another, let's say in the USA, the same Pantone color. So mostly, you always when you want to paint your house, your painters will always ask you for Pantone colors that you want. So these are what that guides them to use it. So you can only use Pantone in industrial printers because they are basically a mix of ink. So you can't even the printers you have at home, you won't be able to use Pantone on them. We use Cmyk for that, basically. So what's Cmyk? Cmyk is basically the short form of cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. The K is the black. They call it key sometimes. Yeah. And it's the base for all other print colors. So whenever you are designing for print, you are designing a billboard, you are designing a magazine, you are designing flyers and co, we use CMYK. And these are the colors you also find in your own printer. If you have ever had all these HP LaserJet and co, and you remove their inks, these are the four colors you always see. CMYK. They will allow you. They are available for print also. Then the next one is RGB. RGB red, green, blue. Basically, is the color mixture that we use for UI design. the monitor emits this color. We use RGB because our monitor, these are the colors they emit, they show basically. So they are made of light and not ink. So basically, instead, like the Pantone and Cmyk, they are all inks, but the RGB is not an ink. It is what it is displayed using light and made of light. So the color spectrum of light is larger than print. Basically, that's why we use RGB, and this is what you always see in most of the UI designs that you use. You will not. I'm not sure. You will not see Cmyk when it's time for you to use your colors on designs, and we have something called the hex. X is basically RGB, but it is more easier for you to get the codes, basically. So if you see in my RGB, you have different values for red, different values of green, and different values of blue. So these values are basically what you will enter. So every color, every shade of color in the world on your computer has specific numbers. You understand? They have specific numbers. So if I'm using RGB, I have to enter a specific number, or I have to move my palette to a particular space for me to select a color. So anytime I select that color, it shows me the value of the color. So if I'm using RGB to select, I select my red first, I select my green first, I select my blue next. You understand? Then it shows me the color I've picked up. And if I use X, X means instead of you selecting red, green, blue all at once, you can just copy the code and just use the code all at once. So basically, uh, X is just a short form of our RGB, and it always display the exact same color as the RGB counterpart. It is just a little easier for you to handle copy, paste, and share due to its string format. So the format it uses is the is the string, which shows the RGB also, but in string format. So this same color that you are seeing here is the same color that is here. So this color here is this color here, but RGB is used here and X is used here, but in form of RGB, basically. Basically. So now that we've learned about, sorry, I'm seeing some messages. You said phantom colors are in from print, or they are from print. They are for print. Phantom colors are for print. You use them in print, but you don't use them in printers at home. All these laser jet and code that you see, they are made of inks. They are made of CMYK also, but you can't really see anyone that is made of Pantone colors, basically. But for industrial prints, where they print all your magazines, where they do DI, you make use of Pantone colors, basically. So now that we've learned about these different types of colors, and now how do you actually use colors in UI designs? I'll be running through this very briefly so that we won't take too much of time. They are just as simple as ABC. If you then you get to learn more on your own, basically. So now that I know colors, I know where to select my colors from. I know the type of color I'm supposed to use. How do I actually use my colors in UI design? Even though in UI design there are no technical limitations, it's best to limit colors to a maximum of two or three. So whenever I'm designing, I try to make sure I'm not using too much of colors. To make everything simple, think of UI design as your living room, and every tone of color, lighting, position must be perfect and have functionality. You understand? So if I have my living room, how bright do I want it to be? Do I want to have multiple colors? The finest rooms are rooms. Finest living rooms spaces are rooms that are that are white, and they have touches of good furnitures, basically that just balances everything out, basically. So we always advise a maximum of two to three colors whenever you are designing, and you can also add some accents to them just to make sure things balance well, basically. So how do I choose the color that I want to actually use? So for you to choose colors, there are different ways for you to choose colors, and we are going to be using a tool called the Rgb Color Wheel. So the Rgb Color Wheel is basically a color wheel of 12 segments. Basically, they are made up of primary, secondary, and tertiary colors. So this is a wheel that you will see on your what's the name on your design tools, and there's one that basically Adobe uses a lot. So there's an Adobe tool that I think I might show you after this where you can select it. But this is a more simplified wheel. Most times they are all blended. So all these lines that you are saying are simplified just for you to understand. Most times they are all blended together, so you might not actually see not see where they are divided basically. But yeah, this is a wheel, and we use this wheel to actually select colors basically uh, for us to select colors. So the first method is the monochromatic approach. So this is when you are selecting just one color. Basically, so you pick your color, and when you select your color, you select from the dark side, that is from this end to the light end, basically. So you can select just these three colors, and you can use them for your design, basically. So monochromatic color is when you pick your color, then walk towards the center of the wheel to get a lovely shade. This color combination creates a very subtle and sophisticated look, basically. So if I want to work on a new design and I want to use just one color, I can pick up my color wheel and say, okay, I'm selecting from the dark shade to the light part. If I select three colors, it will give you um, this sophisticated look where you can then play out with different variants of the colors, basically. Another approach is the analogous color, analogous approach, basically. So this approach is when you pick close by colors to each other. You understand? So that is, they need to be within 90 degrees of each other, and this approach has a bit more dynamic without losing elegance. So the idea is I'm selecting three different colors, but they are very close to each other. So in the color wheel, basically. So if I select this red, I can go to the next shade, which is like this bit of orange, then move to the yellow. And this approach, you can use it in designs also. The other one is a very common one, complementary approach. The complementary approach is basically when you select things that are opposite each other in design wheel, basically. So like you can see, I have these two colors selected, and I'm also selecting something that complements it, that is it's opposite each other. So if you are looking for something vibrant, then the way to go is to start with a base color, then add the complementary color from the opposite side of the wheel. You can combine you can combine this with you can combine this basically with adding more monochromatic colors, basically. So the last one we have is the split complementary approach. So, sorry. So the split complementary approach is basically when you add an analogous color for more vibrance, then so you have your complement. You selected a color, then you selected a complementary color to it. Then you also add analogous color to this to the peak that you've made, basically. So you have complementary and then an analogous. So it's called the split complementary. So this approach adds more vibrance to your color choice, and can give you some nice or great designs if you use them and match them very well, basically. So yeah, the last Hello. Sorry, can everybody hear me now? Sorry. Um, the lights went off and NEPA did their thing, so my Wi-Fi went off. Sorry about that. Yeah. So yeah. Another thing we'll talk about is how to use these colors. Now that I've created my colors, how do I distribute my colors? Basically. So there's a rule called the 60-30-10 rule for color distribution. Basically. So uh, an essential part besides what colors you use is how you use them. So if you already know, okay, these are the colors I'm using, so how do I use them? The 60-30 rule is an excellent rule of thumb. It means that you use your base color for up to 60% of your design, then 30% of your primary, and just to highlight, you use secondary color for 10%. For example, a call to action for the 60 to 10% ratio basically helps you to distribute your colors very well on your designs. So if you can see the image here, most times your neutral colors are like the white space that you have. So your canvas is always comes with the white space or the dark space you want to use. Then your primary color should take more reference. Then the accent color or the secondary color then takes the other 10%, basically. So when you're using all the color, you try to match them so that it works well. And for you to see samples of this, you can always go to any website, any great website that you think you've seen, and you will see how they distribute their color. You might only see one color in on the website, but maybe like you scroll through like almost the whole website, but there will be a time you see different colors just to highlight. Sorry, just to highlight some things. We try to use our secondary colors also, so that it won't look more just bland and just one color all through. So when you're also using colors, shadows help us when we are using colors. So basically, when using shadows, we also use colors for our shadows. So one major thing a lot of people do is when they are trying to use shadows in designs, they tend to stick with black shadows. Then they add opacity to the black. But colors also help our shadows. You can add different shade of colors to your shadows before you then add opacity. A common mistake everybody makes is to think that if you want to make a shadow, we need to put a black color with opacity. And for light, we must use white with opacity. Basically, make sure you are not that you can always spice up your design with colors and color your shadow, color your boxes, color everything, and then you'll be able to you'll be able to have a very great interface. Another thing when it comes to using your color is try to be inspired by what you see around. The nature, God is the greatest designer. So look at the way things are being colored beautifully around you and try to understand how these things play around with your eyes, basically how things can be beautiful. So learning about your surrounding, trying to be inspired by what the nature gives you can actually help you well in terms of applying colors to your digital product also. I'm not talking about the nature of Lagos State. Lagos State does not have color. But when you go to places like Cross River and Co, you'll see the way the natural things combine with each other, basically for you to see beautiful things. So the human eye plays a lot with colors, and you can always learn to use colors by just studying what you have in nature, basically. So so now that you've known the color you are using, you understand how to use the colors. Basically, there's one thing that we always add to it is for you to use color variants. So color variants is basically just like we have variants in objects and shapes. Basically, colors also have variants, and for you to get your variant is for you to have different shades of a particular color. So for more depth in color, use variations of your selected color. As a person, I use different tools to actually achieve my variant. And to my right hand, you see uh, primary, complementary, analogous, and Rgb colors, but they have different variation. Basically, this variation was generated using Google material designs. So I myself, I don't stress myself trying to create different variants for a particular color. I use tools to do that, and I'll show you some of the tools. So it's just for you to add your X values and it to create variants for you. You can use as many as or as few as you need. Most times, the max you can go for is 9 different variations, and a lot of people just use 3 to 5, basically. And yeah, so I will talk more about variants when I go into the design part. I plan on using just 1 hour for talking and another 40 minutes for us to spend our time on Figma, basically. So I'm trying to rush things. So yeah, like everything in this life, knowing how to combine color is practice and practice. So I might have said some things, I might have not said some things, but for you to learn more is for you to actually practice. And when you practice with color, play around, do the wildest combinations, use your complementary colors to actually select different wild combinations. Basically, but the thing for you to do is for you to practice. It is normal in the beginning if it's very difficult and complicated, but then you will notice how it is easier once you don't stop practicing. So never stop learning and practice a lot. That's how you can get how to use your colors, basically. So if you have questions, I would like to answer questions now about colors. Okay, I'm seeing some questions. The color wheel, well, where you choose color from, is that a plugin? So for your color wheel, most of the tools have color wheels, and there are plugins for color wheels too. So we'll try to explore that later. For complementary colors, can you explain that? So, like I mentioned, in complementary colors, using the color wheel, complementary colors are basically colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel. So this color complements with this purple complements with this yellow, this one complements with this purple, this pink complements with this green, this one complements with this one complements with this. So these are complementary colors. Colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel are called complementary colors, basically. So what is this slide going to be? I'll make the slide available after class. I'll just wrap it down, clean it up, and share it with you guys immediately after class. Yeah. So, what is a base color? Base color is basically base colors are basically your primary color. This is the color that takes a lot of presence in your UI design. Your primary color and sorry, base color is basically the neutral color in your design. So for every design you are doing, you are designing on a base, and the base is basically the artboard you are using. Artboard you are using, is your artboard white, or is it blue, or is it green? And basically that's going to be your base color. Then you have your primary color and your secondary color to then add colors to what you already have. So for me, if you are looking at my screen right now, my base color is the white. So that's my spacing. That's like my foundation of anything I want to do. So if I'm creating another design, I say, oh, this particular base color that I'm using, I don't want it to be white. I want another color. So let's say I want it in dark mode. My dark mode is basically my base color. So this is my base color. Then I work with other colors, basically for me to get it. So another question says, a question I have: I know colors bring different emotions, like you said. Startup companies mostly use blue, but where do we allow for uniqueness? Yeah. So I think this is going to be in for brand designers. Brand designers are the ones that define the colors they want to use for the company when it comes to when it comes to their branding, the way they want users to feel. So a lot of people have tied different colors to different things. So they say red is danger, they say blue is the sky, they say green gives health and all those things. So people try to tend to follow those rules, then pick different shades of it. So there are a lot of blues. Like Facebook's blue is different from Twitter's blue. Uh, it's different from Cowrywise blue. It's different from Piggyverse blue. You understand? So it depends on the brand. How does the brand want to communicate? And some of us in this world, we actually are tending to like something very cool. And blue is like the cool thing in this world. You understand? So yeah, um, for us to show uniqueness starts coming from where you start creating variants of the blue, uh, and not necessarily blue. There are different orange colors too. So we have variants, just like I said earlier. We have variants of everything, and and variant is where uniqueness then comes in. Then you can turn it to anything. But brand designers and owners of the brands define the colors most times. You as a UX designer is to continue with the brand they've started with, and then select your color. You can then mix match and say, okay, I'm using different colors for here and stuff. So yeah, that's it about that. And I mentioned variants the other time. So like I said, there are different variations of colors that you can create out. So there are different colors of blues, there are different shades of red that you can create. So it's limitless, basically. And yeah. So like I said, for these variants, I use different tools to actually do select my colors. So please, can you see my screen right now? Okay. Okay, what I mean by 3 to 5 invariants is that for my variations, I can either select to use. So this is my main color. 500 is always my main color, and I can go lighter or darker. So if I go lighter, I can use just two of light. Then choose two of dark. So if I have 800 as my darkest, 500, and I have 600, I have 400, and I have 100. I can use 5 variations, or I can use the 9 variations. So most of the color variants that are created is based on what's the name? It's based on how you want to use it in your design. And no, base colors are not limited to white or black. Base color is you is how you want to start. But we are in a digital world, and most times we try to play it safe. So dark colors and light colors, mostly white, orange. So you can play with it, basically. So yeah, for me to create color variants and for me to select complementary colors or colors that match, I don't want to stress myself by using the color wheels and stuff. There are tools that I actually use as a designer myself, so that I know, okay, I'm not here to come and kill myself. I just want someone to do stuff for me easily. I use 2 different tools for my colors, so I'll be showing you those tools now. So I have coolors.co. So coolors.co helps me to generate random color palettes. So I want to start a new design, but I don't want to stress. Let's say I don't have a brand already. Let's say I think you guys have assignments right now, right? And you don't want to spend so much time doing your brands, but you want colors that actually helps you out. So I use these colors to actually get colors that complement each other easily. So one of So if I start my generator, it basically just shows me different colors where I can then select the best combination I want. So for you to generate is just when you click on the generate button, it generates color. So what it means is these colors works together, and with the click of the space button, it can generate another one. So once I click on space, it generates another one. So if I like any of this color, I'll be like, oh, I like this color, I like this color, but I don't like the remaining three. I all I do is lock these two, and then click on plus. It generates other colors that actually match. Let's say I now say, oh, I like this dark shade. Basically, then I say, okay, I need more, and I say, oh, I like this red shade. I like this. Let's say I like this three. I can just lock everything and then um, create palette from photo. So once I create the palette or export it, it gives me all these colors, and each of these colors they have their code. So like I said, X codes I use like this. So this is your X code, like I mentioned earlier. You can always if I change this color, because I've logged, if I change this color, it changes to another thing. Basically. So yeah, you can always edit it and download it and copy the color codes if you want and put it in your Figma in anything you're doing. And I think yes, I think it's now if it now has a Figma plugin. I'm not so sure. Yeah, it has a Figma plugin. It's new. It has a Figma plugin where you can download it. Basically, so you can download stuff and you can also explore trending palettes people are actually using around the world. You can explore them. You can get as many as different shades. The other color tool I use is called the Ever Design System Deep Learning Color Generator. Basically, this color generator uh, helps me to generate. Yeah, it's coolers.cool. Let me just drop the link for you guys. Coolers.co and also Ever Design. So this particular tool, I use it to create shades of my colors, basically that I'll be using in design. So if I'm designing today and I want to like have my different shades, variants of my colors. I just come here and come in, put in my primary color. So let's say this is my primary color. Let's say this is my primary color. It generates my primary color for me in different variants. So when it generates my primary colors for me in different variants, note the X code here. My 500 is my primary color. Then it goes lighter and it goes darker. So I might need this when designing in the sense that I want to have my colors in different lights. Let's say I want to have some colors just to show some of my components to show some of these colors in a different mood. This is where I do that. There's another plugin on Figma that does this for you. I forgot the name of the plugin. I'm so used to this using this, so I've never downloaded the plugin. Basically, so and this also helps you to create semantic colors. Semantic colors are basically colors that are normal for you to have in designs. Apart from your normal colors, it helps you to show sources, informations, warnings, and also danger on the interface. Basically. So yeah, that's it about the two tools I use personally. Basically, when it comes to colors, there are other ones that helps you to create gradients. I think I'm not sure again. Gradient.com. So if you are going to be using gradients, these tools also help you to generate gradient before you then put it in Figma. So this one's let me just if you are using gradients in your colors, gradients means you are mixing and matching different colors. Basically, it helps you to create all these. It helps you to understand how the gradient will look like, basically, and you can always edit it the way you want to see how it's going to interact before you then copy it. So a lot of mostly people that use this is what's the name? Are developers, basically that use this particular tool. But you as a designer, you can also use it. Now, Now the next thing we'll go to will be for us to go to Figma. Oh, sorry, my Figma file closed, so I'm just opening it again. All right. Please, can everybody see my screen? All right. So I just want to show you how uh, two things I know I mentioned, component and variant. So that's why I want us to come on here to actually understand better what components are and what variants are, and also go back to um, all the small tiny details. I know it would be better for us to actually see it on screen to understand how everything works well, basically. So I know in this class you still learn more about components. I know you still learn more about components soon. I think yeah, you say more about components, but yeah, let's just get our hands dirty. So I have on this screen. This is a personal project I'm working on. I'm just using it to show you guys on things I've when I want to start designing. What I first do, I try to create my component and everything to get started. So one of the things I do is my colors, my buttons, my text fields, my tables, and all that. How do I do them? How do I show them? Basically. So yeah, let's talk about what we first talked about, which is shapes. So on Figma we have. Sorry, please. As have you gone through? I'm sure there should be. I've been a course that are taking you through the interface of Figma and how to actually use Figma. Yeah, there should have. Oh, okay, okay. Okay, and I'll just take you through the basics of Figma. Okay, so yeah, we have roughly 40 minutes more. Okay, okay, cool. So let me just take you through basics, things that you use. So, like I mentioned during the presentation, the things you use majorly is your shape tool. Your shape tool comes in rectangle majorly. Then you have line, you have arrows, you have ellipses, you have polygons, you have star, then you have image. You understand? And if you want to get started, most times you start with rectangle, and we have something we call frame. So your frame is basically oh light mode. I'm sorry, I don't know how to shoot right now. I'm used to this guy already. You cannot see my screen if in light in dark mode. Oh shit. I don't know how to shoot right now. I have to go. Once I switch to dark mode, I'll switch to dark mode. Sorry. All right. So yeah. So when you want to get started, most times you use the rectangle tool, the line tool for you to start. But because of these two, we won't be using mostly the rectangle tool. We'll be using what we call frame. So frame is basically where your design stays in Figma. So let's say I'm designing for a mobile app, or for a mobile app, I can easily select the app I'm designing for, and it creates a frame for me. So whenever I'm trying to create, So when I'm creating my designs, most times if I'm not going to be using rectangle, I use my frames. I can use my frame basically, and it helps me to get things started. So I can draw different frame here, and I can give them a color. Let's say with the fill, give it any color. Let's say red. So yeah, what I first explained in the core, the different the different the different properties of your, what's the name of your shape. You have the width and height, which is here. This is the width, and this is the height. Basically, you also have the position in the x and the y. So if I move this, if I move this particular box, you will see that my x and y are changing as I move it. Basically, so that's the x. If I then increase this width, the w, you can see the numbers are changing. The height is also changing as I move it. Basically, that's the positioning and size. If I want to turn the angle basically is here. I can also hover my mouse, come to the corner and try to rotate it. Basically, this then shows that I can rotate this guy. Then I have the last one, which is the corner radius. The corner radius is basically uh, just bump up the numbers from 0 to 100. You can see it forms the shapes I want. And like I said, you can actually also have this in not on every. So if I say my first corner, I want the corner radius to be 2. You can see this is in 2. The next one, I want it in 100. This one, I want it in 2. And the other one, I want it in 100. Basically, the corner radius allows me to do that. So those are like the basic properties of your shape. And I also talked about the fill. This is the fill part where you actually have your fill, and it's filled with red right now. The other one I talked about is also, let me just remove this and change it. Sorry. Let me just change everything to 10. Now we'll see everything very. Yeah. So the other the other properties the other properties of our box model is the strokes. So for you to add strokes, you can just click on here, and it has given you a stroke so that you can see it well on this white background. I'll be using white as the color of the stroke. So our stroke, let's put it at the size of the stroke to be at 2. Uh, let's say 10, so that you see it very well. So our strokes can be in different places. It can be inside, which it is currently. That is, instead of it maintaining the size of the fill is reducing for the stroke to have more space. And it can also be outside. So that is, my fill maintains 100% fill, but created a stroke outside of it, basically. And you can also put it in the center. In the center means both outside and inside are taking part of the spaces the strokes are taking, basically. So that's the stroke. The other part we have is the effects. The effects part is where you can add your drop shadows. There are different things. Can have drop shadows, inner shadow, layer, blur, background blur, basically. So let's talk about the drop shadow. The drop shadow is basically the shadow below your file. Basically, let's say this is my tool, and I've created the drop shadow. All I need to do is click on the shadow button and add my x and y. X and y here always means positioning. Where do you want um your shadows to show? Basically, so if you understand real life scenario, my y is this, so I'm increasing the y, it is showing more. If I want to give it a more 3D look, and I increase my x, show a lot of elevation. This is a lot of elevation. Then we have, how well do you want this to spread? Do you want it this big, or you should maintain the normal shape? And if you want to blow it out, I don't want it to show too much. I can blow it out, basically bumping up the number. Then what is the opacity? Like I said last, you can always use color. So let's say I'm using red for this guy as my opacity. You can see the shadow changes color. then I can then improve on my opacity. Do I want it to be very bright, or I want it to be very subtle? You understand? So that's how shadow works, basically. And if, let me just duplicate this guy and then remove some things. Let me remove background. So I also talked about in the effects place. Let's say this is my effect. I have layer blur. So layer blur is basically for you to blur this particular object that you are using. So if you want to have an effect and you want to blur things out, you can use layer blur. If you want to blur what is in the background, you use background blur for that. So most times, your colors are always like, let's say, 30%. So everything I have in the background will look blurry. But if I have this, I remove my effects, you can see what is in the background. But if I put my effect back to background blur, you can see everything behind it. It is always making it blur. So those are like the basic things in oh my god. Okay. So these are like the basic things in when it comes to your object and tools. And I also mentioned there are other tools like the ellipses. You can create the ellipses, but if you can see this blue outline is showing that this ellipsis is still measured in uh, height and width. And basically, if I draw out a triangle also, if I draw out a triangle, it's also measuring this in length and width, basically. So in design, we use just the length and the height to measure as it were on a flat surface, basically. So the other part I want to mention is component and variant. How you create your component and how you create your variant. So I will then use this to explain very well. So let's take my first component in any design as my button. Basically, when I wanted to start this particular project I'm working on, I needed to create a design system. The design system is basically a system where it has all the components, all the colors, and everything that you are using for that design, so that you won't go outside that whenever you are designing. And any new innovation you are coming with when designing, you add them to your design system. Basically, so um, my first component is the button. And how do I create a button? A button also, I started this with, so I'll be replicating what we have here. Yeah. So I'll be repeating this so that we understand. So if you want to create your component, one of the first thing is start with a frame. So for this one, I'm using let's say 44, 44, and I'm going to select the color. So I'm using this color. So I want to create a button. I select my text tool also. So let's say I have my primary button created here. So let's say this is my primary button. I've created my boring button by using a frame and also using my text to just write, let's say, click here, click me. I've used my text to say, okay, click me. This is how I should be. So basically, I then center this guy and say, okay, take this. So let's say I want to add, what are the juices I can add to this button to make it more look beautiful? Let's say I will say, let me add corner radius. Let me add this corner radius. And once I have this corner radius, let's call this my primary button. So this is my primary button. This is the button I want to use for my designs. Sorry, I'll come back to all the questions you guys are asking. So when I create my primary button, this is my primary button. It is like a component. I've created this component. You understand? And anytime I'm designing and I want to use the button, I will always come and refer to this. If I need a primary button, I always want to select this particular button to actually design. So I know for you to create interaction and feel in product design and UI UX design, you have to actually give feedbacks every time. You have to give feedbacks every time to users. So how do I give feedback to users? And basically, let me try to look for if I have a sample. Okay. So, all right. So for this particular stuff, for this particular uh, design, basically this is a box that is showing different colors, but when my mouse was not on it, it is showing it plainly. But when I hover on it, basically it's showing me different elements on it. That is one of the first things you will notice is there's a shadow that came into play. The shadow elevated the design. That's another component, that's another variant of the same component. So let's say this is a component, this particular guy is a component, but it has different variations of the component. So interactions with it makes it shows different variation. It's more like it's morphing, it's like a chameleon. It reacts to what is actually doing, actually happening to him. So I hover on it, it shows me another component. On the same component, I hover on something else, it's showing me another different component of it. On this one, I hover on it, showing me another. If I then click on it, if I then if I click on it, I should be able to click. If I reset it, it's showing me something else. If I copy it, it's showing me that I've copied it. If I say I want to edit it, it's showing me another variation of it. So basically, that is what variation is all about. That's what variation is all about. So if you want to create different variations, we create different variations for all the elements that we have. So for my button, I obviously know my button. Someone is going to hover on my button, and I also want to give the person feedback. I also want to give the person feedback when the person clicks. I also want to show this variation that, oh, my button, it can be active and it can also be disabled. How do I show this? So that's where variant actually comes into play. So I've created my button component. You understand? And for me to be able to access this anytime I want to use it on any of the screens I'm designing, Figma has created something called the component tool. You can always find that on top here, or you can right click to make anything a component. So if I click on create component, it creates it as a component that you always want to remember. So I've created this component and I can name it my buttons. So how do I create different versions of this? As I've created this component, I could have just said, oh, I want this to be another style that is on this color. I want it to be whenever I move, I want this color to change, or whenever someone clicks on it, I want it to have a stroke, let's say deep blue. I want it to have different shades. So if I say, okay, on click on Uber, I want it to have, if I say on Uber, I want it to have these colors. That is, anybody that hovers on it, I want it to have this color. And let's say, let's add something. Let's say a drop shadow should come on it. So basically, on Uber, I'm seeing drop shadow, and on click, when someone has clicked on it, it's showing let's say a border radius. Would have been able to do that. So these are like variants of this same button. It's still the same button, but it's showing in different ways. What if this button is a form field? If I have different forms above, and you have to complete all the forms before this button becomes active. It is that is, I want it to be I want it to be inactive. That is okay. If you're an inactive, how should you show inactive? Let's say I want to put it at 20% opacity. So like this, it's showing that it's a button, but it is not active. For this kind of button, you have to give feedback and tell user that yeah, whenever you click on this, it should show inactive. You understand that you need to complete something before. So these are like variations of these same buttons, but in different variants. You understand? But Figma has helped us to do that. We don't create these buttons and have issues so that we'll be able to access it easily. So what they've done is they've created something called variant, and for you to start with variant, you need to start with your what's the name? With your main button, your primary button. And for you to click on create variant, you will come back to this top and you see what they call add variant. When you click on add variant, it tells you to name the variant. So you currently come here and say on over, on over, on over, what should happen? Um, let's say let's change the color a bit darker and let's add effect to it. Effect to it. That is, let's add a shadow to it. So I've created a variant. So another variant I would like to create, let's say is disabled. Let's say on my disabled, I say reduce the color to 20%. Reduce color to 20%, and it should show something else. So let's say I want to create another. Let me create it and say create another variant. Another variant is so this one I'll name it disabled, and then this one I'll name it disabled over. So for this one, let's put the color to at 20%, and let's let's just do something. Let's say I create a box and then add corner radius. So you can say text inactive. I don't want to show you that it's not just the button that can be done. You can also add elements to an existing state. Let me reduce this to like 12. Let's just say two tick. And let me bring this guy here. And let me add triangle. I'm just trying to create something quick. It's not how I'll work on normally. So I just want to create a two tip to show that yeah. Uh, anytime I'm using, let me union these guys. I say, let me put this in black and this in light. So don't mind me, I'm just selecting any color just to show something. I can say, okay, for this particular variant, I want it to add two tips. I want it to show two tips, basically. So let me just, I don't want to spend too much time on it. I want it to show it two tip whenever someone hovers on it, basically. So let's say, yeah, and now I've created my variant. So how does this variant work? The variant works in the sense that you can prototype it. So whenever I'm designing, let's say um, I created the screen the other time. Okay, let me just create another screen. Um, let's create a desktop screen. So let's say we have a design that says um, the UI UX design. Let me just pump up text. So let's say we have a landing page. I want to use this button for it, and all I just need is click on this button and then drag it here. You get. So let's say I have a layout like this that says drop off the button. So how does this interact? How does this interact with this guy? So one of the things I will do is I will then select my tools, then go to the prototype mode, select my layout and say whenever someone hovers on this, it should show this guy. So what I'm going to do is my interaction. I'm sure you guys will still learn this in details. I'm just going through just to show you why variant works well. So let's say on mouse and white hovering, change to and this one to white hovering, wow hovering. Yeah. So I know there's a class where you guys will do prototyping. Basically, I'm just trying to show you what variant does on the knobs. So I shouldn't be doing this, but I just wanted to show you something. So basically, I've created the two variants. I've created these two variants. Let me also add this guy. Let me also add this guy so that we understand better. So yeah, I've created a landing page and I want people to click on it. Basically, whenever their mouse might hover on it and they see a reaction to it, you can see once I moved across it, it's changed the way the button is looking like. Basically, that is, it's still the same button, but the variation is different. It's not the same button that I was with when I was landing on the page. So when I moved across, I can see that it is giving me a feedback, and the feedback is that you can interact with me. Basically. So for the one that is disabled, so most disabled buttons are either like this or in black and white. Basically, I think for the design system I'm creating, this my disabled buttons is in like black and white. Basically, when I over on it, it's showing me, it's telling me a two tip. It's telling me that you can't click or unavailable. You understand? Just tell me that it's a button that you can click, but you need to do something first before before you you then use it. Basically, so these are how variant works. So variants are just basically variation of a component you have created, be it button, be it text. For text, there are different types of text that you can create to, you understand. So your text too works perfectly as your text feed works perfectly as variation. You can create them as variation because uh, there are different ways you see them. I think I should just show samples. Let's go to Cowrie wise. So if you see this landing page right now, they have a text field. The text field on the knobs, I'm not interacting with I'm not interacting with it right now. So it is standard like this. But when I put my mouse on it, it's showing me another variant of it. It's showing me that the outline is now in blue. It's showing me different stuff. So when I enter it, when I start typing, the feel is different. If I type and say before the and I type finish, it's also showing me another variation of it that once I'm done typing, you can see it went back to almost default but with it. So the text feed also has different variations of what they are doing. You understand? So that's how you create variants of on Figma and also what variants obviously mean. So your variant doesn't just end with your button, it also goes with your cards, with the cards you'll be using, with the your navigations and everything you are doing, basically. So I use them in navigations, I use them in my cards, I use them in virtually almost every component I'm doing. So that, especially if I'm designing for web always have when something hovers on it because you need to give people feedback a lot on web. mobile doesn't really need too much of variants, but you also have variations for them, basically. So that's how you create variants, and that's how you work along with variants. Also, you can see for my color, also I also have different variants for this particular brand. I have my colors in primary, secondary, thematic colors, basically just to show success, warning, danger, and also have a neutral color on my grayscale. So my grayscale is one important part of design where you actually, instead of using black every time, you're able to use different shades of gray for you to define depth and all that, basically. So yeah, that's how you create variants, and that's how you use variants, basically. And for your variants, like I have primary button, I have secondary buttons. For each of them, I must create a variant for them so that it works well across board. So anytime I'm designing, all I need to do is just call any of these buttons that I need. That's why I do them. So yeah, I'll be looking at all these questions now and try to understand what you guys are asking. Why didn't you use auto layout for the buttons, sir? So I use auto layout for my buttons. Don't mind me. I was just trying to show you guys something. So if you see this button, this particular button, my auto layout is active. So I've done auto layout, padding, I've done all this. So I guess you guys have been taught auto layout or something. That's why you could ask me that question. I didn't want to go too deep into things that you haven't been taught. Okay, I think last class you guys did auto layout. Yeah. So yeah, auto layout. I use auto layout in almost everything I do. So I'm a user of two tools. I don't use just Figma. I use Adobe XD. Adobe XD doesn't have auto layout. They call it something else, but I use them in both things. Anytime I'm doing, because it makes work easier for you whenever I want to type. So if I bring out this button, let me bring out this button so that you see that there's an auto layout to it. So if I say if I type something else, let's just try this off and see. You can see it's functioning as an auto layout, basically. If I click on enter and I put something else, enter, put something else, and I put on something else, it's functioning as an auto layout stuff. So yeah, I use auto layout for my buttons just for that reason. I didn't want to stress myself to use auto layout. Using auto layout. Is it necessary for you to create a design system for every design project you are working on? It's not necessary, but if you can create a design system, it will be good for you. But it's not necessary. Sometimes it depends on the kind of work. But you just need something to guide you on what you are doing. Design system is a very big thing for you to manage. When you are creating it, it's like a whole lot of work. A whole lot of work. So I have a design system here that it's a whole lot for you to manage, basically. So when you are updating things, you keep updating it every time, every time, every time, every time. So you have documentations for everything, your headlines, everything, your auto layout, everything. You have to do that. So it's kind of like a whole lot of things for you to do. So if you are going to be doing design system, then you need to have time for you to do all this. But if not, make sure you just get all your basic components available for you so that you won't repeat things. And make sure you follow the guidelines that you not follow. Then maybe once your product is out, you can come back and start doing matching to get things done better. Basically. Which other question? Why are you not using organic for text? I don't understand again. It's strange to me. Is there a standard size for buttons? There are standard size to buttons depending on who your company. So there are no general standard styles, but depends on how you want to do them. So for me, I don't go more than 56 in terms of button when it's big, and small. I don't go lower than 32. I think yeah, my height. So I use height for my button. So my height is always 32. Then the text defines how big they will be. Basically, for this one, I'm on 44. So anything distributed by 4 or 8, that's what I use most times. I must configure about shadow Y and X section. When you increase the Y section, is the X that is showing the shadows. Okay. And this go. Design systems can they be downloaded? Some people create design system for you to download. Yeah, so design systems can be downloaded. Yeah, you can download them, then edit. I think they are general ones. They are like IBM's design system. They call it Carbon Design System. While I was at Carbon, I also created one called the Hydrogen Design System for Carbon. Um, there is Apple Design System is also available for you guys to design to download. You can always go to Human Interaction Design. Uh, Apple. So this for Human Interaction Design. This is the design system for Apple. Basically, you also have Material Design System. You have Material Design System where you can also see all the components and everything. Material Design System. So all these are available. You will see all the components. So if you click on components, you see all the components, all components. You see your content. Then they try to make sure they show you all this, and you can download them on Figma also. So I think I have, I have one on Figma here that is downloaded. Let me see. I opened this recently. Yes, this iOS 15. This is iOS 15. This is their design system, and you can always get it online. People create it available. Also, Apple made it available for you, so you can always download it to use. So it has all the properties and everything done for you. So yeah, on an average, it depends on how big your design structure is. So it takes months. It takes months, especially if you are just the only one. It takes months. And it depends on the different components you're creating. So it depends because you need to understand how the design system, the components are going to work. So I think you've learned some things in auto layout, you've learned some things in layout itself, and now you can do layout basically. And now your grid system, it depends on your grid system. You have to create component that matches your grid system. You have to create. So it depends on how best you can do it, and now you test it with people also. Depends. So I can't say this particular time. Depends on the time you are giving to it and all that. So yeah, there are design systems you can get. There's material design system where you also see everything we learned about today, which is color, the type of color, their color system. You see it. This is the color they are using, and their backgrounds and all that. You see all the then the legibility of colors or of their text and everything. You are able to see that here also. So you can study material design and also study Apple design if you are going to be designing a lot for mobile. These two, you will never escape them. So you should try to learn them um, and know more about them, and also study how each world operates. Basically, there are things Apple does that I what's the name? Google doesn't, and there are things Google does that Apple doesn't. So yeah, I'll just send you the links. So the links for Apple and Material UI, Material.io. You can always keep them updated. So because they update them every time. So like this is the new material. So if you are using one of the latest Android, you'll have seen most of these things available for you on your phone. And you can also download their kits. So they have Figma kits. They used to have XD kits too because I download most of their XD. Yeah. So there are other system worth mentioning there. I mentioned Carbon Design System. Carbon Design System is by IBM. So it's by IBM. Yeah, and you can download that too. They have it on Figma, Sketch, They have it in web. They also have it in XD. I don't know why it's not here, but they also have that. Then you can also have. We also have. There are top companies like Atlassian. Atlassian. Atlassian also has their design system out for you to see, so you can view their components, explore their components and patterns, understand it. I think I'm not sure if they have it on Figma, but you can also check if they have it on Figma. So you see all their components. So like you can see, almost all their components are available for you to understand, see works how it works. Yeah. No Nigerian companies also publish their design system. Not really. I'm not so sure I've seen a design system from a Nigerian company. We almost hide that. The last one I did, I have done two design systems, or three, bungalow carbon and bungalow carbon and stuff. So we don't publish it out. We actually just keep them indoors. So, but soon, Nigerian companies will be publishing that. Although Carbon Zone is online, but I can't remember the URL again. But yeah. So if there are no other questions, Atlassian.com is not slash component. Atlassian designs. So let me show you Atlassian zone. So there's Facebook zone too. There's Windows design system. You can just search them on Google. You always see them available for you. They are not hiding it. They are using it to teach everybody, basically. So yeah, yeah. Uber Zone 2 is online. Everybody's zone is online majorly. Everybody's zone is online, except from Nigerian design systems. Yeah. So yeah, that's it for today. I hope you guys learn a lot, or at least updated your knowledge of what you've known before. And in the coming classes, you'll be learning lots more about UI. I think your next class should be about typography and um, and how you use colors and all that. So we've started with the colors. So you move to the next part of colors where you start using it and also practice gradients and all that. Then yeah, and yeah, I think my next class I'll be teaching you guys about um how you all these small. I knew someone got lost in the time I was trying to prototype something. How you actually create animations when it's times for UI design and stuff. So we'll be learning that a lot in my next class. I'll try to make sure I come fully loaded for you guys so that at least everybody will practice and try to understand everything we are doing. So till then, see you next time. We'll be meeting up soon. And like I said, practicing every day is what helps you to get better. I am I'm someone that always says you practice and you get better. There's no trick to it. So you've learned today, go and put it to practice. I can't say everything on this call. I'm trying to just course through everything. You understand? So make sure as you get you're done, at least dedicate like 2 hours to it to do stuffs. And if you want to learn more on UI design, you want to actually practice every day. Apart from your assignment, you should be doing your assignment, but you also have time for you to practice. I think there's a UI design thing I did then, dailyui.com or so or .co, I've forgotten, where you can actually have things that they give you every day for you to practice on, and you can just flex your skills on it. So everything you learn, you try to adapt to it. The more you do, the better for you. So I used to say it. Try to learn, copy people's design, look at people's design, copy it, replicate it. I started like that also. You understand? Replicate people's design. Then when you've done this for a lot of time, things start flowing in. You remember a lot of things you've seen around. I as a designer, when I design most times, I can just walk around my area just to get inspirations for UI design on walls. You understand? So when you are like that, you get to see inspirations at everyday things because everything also has an experience, and you can always imitate physical experience to uh, digital experience. So practice every day. and make sure you get things out. Just sit down 2 hours every night. I still do it. I've been working for the past 5 years and I'm still doing daily UI challenge on myself. You understand? So I make sure every day does not go without me doing something. At least I'm pushing out a screen. Even though if you not see the screen online, at least personally, I push it out every time. You understand? I think yes, the recording will be available on YouTube for you later, for you guys later. So I think the administrator will do that. So thank you very much once again. Till next time, my name is Timo Bolan Rafakede. And if you want to reach out to me, I think you can reach out using any of these links. Yep. So my Twitter is Bifakede, my Instagram Mobolanwa, and my LinkedIn slash Bifakede. You can always reach me out, and if you need questions, I'm always on Slack. You can push your questions to me on Slack. I'll try to respond. Weekdays I might not respond early. I might respond in the night because I'm working. But weekends I'll try my best if I'm not at a wedding or anything. So yeah, thank you and God bless you. Have a great weekend.